Hello, it's Cara, and I am so hankering to get this painting finished. And I've been doing my battles with this video setup, trying to get my whole painting in one view and not have shadow from the overhead light. And I just don't have it sorted out. But I am going to do it anyway, even if it's imperfect, because I want to get this painting finished for my open studios this weekend. And I want to show you how I do that. And where I am right now is adjusting the lights and darks, mostly the darks, the shadows, because this is the fourth piece of painting the light. If I have a podcast on that, you could check it out. And this is my quite water spotted reference image, but it's the one that will fit here in the view all together. And what I'm seeing is this area over in here, I don't have dark enough. And maybe up in here too. It's not as overall as dark. There's some light spots in there that I've got in there, but I wanna have this read. And then the last thing is over in here, the background out of focus, which is a little scary because I got to keep all my lines really soft, and there are some lights in there. There's some, bit of light there and there and there, and yet all the rest of this needs to get a little more shadowy so that this part here, the light part of this in focus flower will pop forward. And this little guy here is jumping out too much. Maybe I need to kind of blur that edge a little bit. I'm just seeing, let's see what's going on down here. I'm liking what's going on here. It's nice and soft, but it could use a little more shadowing in here as relative to here. It's showing up a little less contrasting somehow in the video as I'm looking at it as it's being recorded, but it's not, but it still could use a little bit more, which is tricky because I don't want to get this really dull in here. So I'm going to dive in. I'm going to have my image off over here so that you can see what I'm doing entirely. And I'm continuing to use just the three colors that I have been the whole time I've painting these flowers. Let me bring my palette over into view so you can see. I've squeezed a little bit of the paint onto this mixing space on my palette. This is Manganese Blue Hue, Daniel Smith. Oops, it's got a little bit of green in it. Where's my water? Because I had touched the yellow. So there's the Manganese Blue Hue. And I won't use too much of this, but Hansa Yellow Medium. And this guy here is Winsor Newton Permanent Rose. So I'm probably going to use mostly the rose and the blue to make kind of a violet. And if it's looking a little too vivid, I put a tiny bit of yellow in it to kind of dull it a little bit. Probably more blue. It's going to be probably more on the blue side of violet. That's kind of how I see to paint shadows in white things. That's looking a little too dull, so a little more blue, maybe a little more rose. So somewhere in there, but lots of water. As I said before, water is a color. It's white. It's the white because it allows the white of the paper to show through. Okay, so I'm going to dive in here. I'm using also Princeton Neptune. The number is worn off. I think it's an 8. I don't know. I might want to switch to a larger brush. I need some paper towels in hand because I always got to have a paper towel in my left hand. And I'm going to start working in over here. I'm just going to glaze. Whoop, that's a little dark. Let's do a little extra water. And where's the edge? This is the edge of the petal here above. I want to preserve the whites in that. So that's the line. Sometimes it's really scary, to jump in, and I've got all this lovely softness going on here, and to just glaze in with what feels like maybe a little bit sort of drab color, and yet it's what it takes. I'm afraid of making mud. However, I think that every painting could use a little mud. It's rest for the eyes. So I'm just kind of going petal by petal here, mixing up a little bit more as I need it, staying a little on the blue side. Actually, I'm going to start shifting a little bit more to the rose when I get over to this guy. There's a strong line there, and I've kind of lost the edge in the image. It's kind of lost the edge between this petal and this, and my purple's looking a little too purple. And these some of these center pieces here are you know, the anatomy of the flower, the stamens and such are also in the shadow, so they want to have a little of this muted blue violet glazed over them as well. It's early in the morning, so I've got a little bit of a froggy voice because I haven't used my voice yet today. I've been messing around trying to, okay, so there's some light in here, and I don't know that I entirely saved it, but I'm going to try to, this is not, and there's some light spots there, and that's a real light spot, and this definitely needs to get darker. And I know I need to go fix over here. It's just a little too intense. What else is light in here? Nothing. Nothing. Glaze over, over, over. It's really, really bright. And this edge is kind of soft. It's interesting, these petals, you get like shadows, hard shadows, but a lot of it's really, really soft. And I'm going to come back in and lift a little here and there where it feels like it needs a little bit of light brought back in. Okay, so with that done, now it feels a little out of balance up here. So I'm going to do a little more. I already had done a little more here, but this light shadow here is looking a little too strong. So I'm going to pull some of it out. And actually, as the photo tells me, a lot of this is in shadow. So I think what I'm going to do is just shadow a little bit more this lower piece, and then so that's in full on sun, so it's going to stay white. And I need to handle a hard edge here. And then what do I want to do here? It's definitely pinker, but it just needs another whole layer, I think. I think I'll do this. It's not quite as lavender. These little green jobbies here, they're definitely, the way I figured to do this, the camera is literally right, I'm standing to do this because it's literally right front where I'd be sitting, so that I don't have the overhead light shadowing. I'm doing some internet searches. I'm determined to get this figured out, but what I did last time wasn't working because I wanted to see the whole painting, and we were zoomed into this spot in the last video that I did on this painting. So, okay, so this is light here. Darken up this little shadowy spot there, and definitely soften those edges, because that's one of those lovely, when I share how I see to paint luminous petals, one of the things to do is to make sure to get to have that soft painting into wet effect, because otherwise you lose the petaliness. I don't know. What do you lose? You lose the softness. Okay, so I'm going to see how that feels. Moving on. So this guy's been kind of this flower here has been kind of a little bit of a a conundrum for me. This is my beat up Princeton Snap. That's a nice, not too destructive scrubber. And I'm going to kind of see if, like, losing the distinction a tiny bit between the either edge of this is a darker petal. I think it belongs to this flower, and it's coming through here, but this intensity of the color, even though it's there in my reference image, it makes the whole thing kind of stick out. So I'm just going to kind of lighten it up a little bit. All right, I think what I want to do is this piece right here. Mix a little bit more. That little tiny bit of yellow really does something to keep it from being so kind of garishly lavender. And keep away from my sky. Feels like something wants to be lifted back out from here. When it's still wet, you can do that with ease. Just a damp brush and it just acts like a sponge. Okay, so now fuzzy background. This needs to go back. See how much more intense and shadowy this is than I have it. So do a little more mixing here. Yellow. Make it a little tiny bit more blue. And I think what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to wet the whole area, except maybe the whitest whites again, and then paint into wet. At this stage in a painting, I am a big proponent, especially at this stage, a big proponent of standing up to paint. It's keeps, when I'm down finding my way through the details of areas like this, it's definitely time to sit and focus and find my way through my shapes that I've drawn with a pencil. But at this point, all that's done, and it's nice to kind of get the overall view and to not be so fussy and worrying about all the little nitty-gritties and just kind of put some paint down. So over here it's definitely, and even this, and I didn't wet this first, so I gotta soften that. It isn't really light there. The light is here. I can go over that green too. It's definitely not all of this. There's a big dark spot here. I don't know what that other thing I was looking at that was kind of yellow-green, but there you go. Oh, and this needs another layer. I'm going to wet that for now and just give it a little bit of lavender, a little bit of my shadow color. Stay away from the whites of my petal there. Artists who paint with me often have, understandably, a little anxiety about being able to mix the same color again. And this is definitely actually a little bit warmer over here. I'm going to let that go and put in another layer of something more. This isn't quite so, but what I find is that it's one of those things that happens in time and with experience, is because I mix over and over and over. I am sort of impatient. I'm a ready, fire, aim person. I want to get in and paint. So I don't take the time to do that, and I just mix over and over. So how this one person does it in this world, in this watercolor world. All right, water in here, and then we're going to use a little bit more red and a little more clean yellow. Too much yellow, so go more red. So I have kind of a red. And just give a little bit of lavender to that. Or a little off camera, sorry. So down in here, kind of with a little bit of a maroony color, which is fine. Bring it in here. Stretch it out a little bit so it's not quite so intense. One of the hardest things I think to do in watercolor is to have a really, really gradual transition that's really soft and even. It's not like that's dark and that's light, or that's medium and that's light. This is looking funny up here. It's looking like a little cartoon shape. I'm just going to kind of glaze over a lot of it, as if it's kind of blocking the sky a little, because the sky itself is not shadowed. The sun's up there. All right, where's my green palette? What do I have on here? I'm going to get a little Winsor Newton Permanent Sap Green, which is quite different from their sap green. It's my favorite out of the tube green in artist grade paints. It's kind of my, so I'm going to do just a little more in here, just to give this a little more purpose. And soften the edge because it's still in the background, fuzzy. Whoops. A little green over there, didn't mean to do that. It's sitting up on my hard edge. I put this really dark, what seemed to me at the time, just a minute ago, dark lavendery color, and it's just gone. I want a little definition, a little background behind the background flowers. I find if I tap my brush sometimes, I get a little bit of wicking off the brush onto the wet paper, and I just went and lifted it. There's watercolor for you. Soften that there. All right, that's definitely looking more, you can't see it so much in the camera, but I'll share at the end of this video, I'll share a still photo of this whole thing. So let's check out what's going on down here. This was really tricky. It was a petal with the sun shining through it such that you could see this leaf behind it, and parts of it was petal and parts of it was leaf, and I don't know if it works, but it's what I got. So we're going to do a little bit more shadow in this area here. And I'm going to be careful about that because it's showing more lightness in the camera as I'm looking at this as it's recording than actually in real life. So, but I still think it could use a little, as I said. a light edge there I want to save. More right there. These Princeton Neptunes are such soft, lovely, lovely glazing brushes, but they don't have the sharpest tips. So I be careful as I try to do fine work with them, to be very intentional. Okay, now time to get a little more brave. I'm going to use some straight manganese blue hue in places, just to give it a little life. Oops, sorry, put that here and here. Yeah, that helps. All right, where else? Maybe over here a little bit. I adore this paint. It's really kind of, I call it tamed phthalo. And it's, the hue is very much phthalo, but and they do something to it chemically, to the pigment particles, because they are, they lift beautifully, they granulate a little bit, so it's not staining, and it's way less intense, but it has that lovely turquoisey soft blue hue to it. So it's my favorite blue for painting white flowers. And when I've tried cobalt, and cobalt kind of ends up being just a little icy, a little cool. Where else might I put it? Actually, what I'm going to do is some straight rose right down in here, just to bring this out a little. Because I can. Up in here. It's great to paint with paints that are your favorites, you know, that you go, oh, I love this paint. And it's great to know what those are. All right, need to step back a little and see how we're doing. Definitely have created more shadow. There's a shadow that comes over this area here, and I'm not sure I really want to put it in. This has ended up really vivid compared to this, and I don't really know if that's a problem. Oh my gosh, got the green. Oh, Cara. I got the green from the back of my palette. Trying to do too many things at once. Video and painting together at the same time on not just like a, you know, demo painting. Sometimes is a little harrowing. And then this bled up here. In a way that was not pleasing to me. I just can't help myself. I've got a fuss. Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna tilt this back a little, we can see a little bit more of it. And wondering if I didn't get this leaf too intense as compared to everything else. It is quite intense. Here it is in the larger reference image. I think I've lost some of the yellow in here. I'm going to see what happens if I try to lift some of this. I'm going to be bold. So I'm using the super soft brush. I don't want to be destroying. I don't want to lift too much. Couple spots. And then we're just going to go right over with the Hansa Yellow Medium and kind of soften that. And it looks like I've gotten a little bit of, and this is gonna calm down. when it dries. It looks really blobby and yellowy now, but this is exactly what was wanting in my sense of this leaf. I lost some of that kind of springtime lightness in it. Lift that little section a little more yellow. And this is a little smaller area, so I'm going to use my beat up snap and little yellow. Bring a little sunshine in. Even if it's not just like the photo, it's actually even better. This is a painting. So here we are. Let's move my reference images away. I'm going to say goodbye for now. Here's where I am on this painting. Don't know what it's going to be called, but I'm going to very soon call it done. I think I might need to fine tune some of my corners. It's one of those things that catch me, is if I don't have corners really carefully defined here and there, you know, like in these spots, like that might want to be a little bit more crisply blue there, and here. So I like those kind of finishing things that I think really make a painting, because they catch my eye. Anything that catches my eye. Maybe I want to do a little edge work in here just for a little excitement, or maybe not. Maybe I just want to let that be quiet, but we'll see. But this is pretty close to done, so thanks for hanging in, and I will see you next time. Here's the finished piece, finished as of that last session that you just watched. And you can see there's some more established shadows in the background and some of the flowers and a light spot on that leaf. There's a little bit more to do, but this is where it is for now.